Back with another 8-minute video on network marketing. This series of videos is all about things you can do right now as we're going into the busiest time of year in network marketing, January through April. And I got a concept for you today, and really an approach that I have seen time and time and time again work. Matter of fact, if this doesn't happen, and then I'm just taking experience here. I'm not saying it's guaranteed, but my experience is if this doesn't happen, your business never takes off. Now, this particular video is for everyone. It's for the brand new person who hasn't clicked yet. It's for the person who's stuck, and it's for the person who's having tremendous success, which means you want that to keep going on. So you need to believe this and teach this because I know it happened to you. You may not have been aware of it. But if you can find these little hacks, these little things that make a difference, these code breakers, if you will, it just speeds up the process. Because if you're going to make it, it's going to happen, whether you're aware of it or not. But a quick story. So I was in a legacy company before the company I was in right now. They changed a lot of stuff, and it just wasn't going to be for us anymore. No bashing anybody, no negativity about anything. But one of the most iconic stories in that company was when the founder was getting the company started. And this happened back in Louisiana. And so the founder of the company, who had come from another legacy company, had tremendous success. He eventually retires. I don't really know how that all worked out, but and then a couple of years later decides to start his own company. He had a vision, things he wanted to do, things he wanted to do differently. He had, certain mission statement of life and how he wanted to run this business. So puts together his business plan and gets about the business of the founder has to do the initial recruiting. That's how it works. That's why it really is important to have someone that's been a distributor, someone who's actually led field teams. So in any case, he's doing this presentation one day with this successful local businesswoman, goes through the presentation, and this woman says, wow, this really seems like a great opportunity. Tell me, now, if I decide to do this with you, how many of us are going to be doing this? And he said, well, ma'am, if you decide to do this, there'll be two of us, you and me. You see, that guy, by his name is Charlie. Charlie had to get plus one, his plus one. So this training is to bring your awareness up, if you're not already aware of it, that my experience tells me that the business will take off for you when you find that one person who's willing to lock arms with you and do this business with you. Now, that doesn't mean they're identical to you and that you're twins and you're walking around holding hands. What I'm talking about is, one is the loneliest number. There's no doubt about it. Trying to do this alone is difficult. So finding your plus one, someone who's going to lock arms with you and do this business with you. I've had people have really good success retailing, but it didn't really take off for them until they found the one. Now, the one can also change, right? For me, my experience to getting to the top in network marketing was, gruesome because I made every mistake. I didn't understand these kind of concepts. Didn't even really understand. I was just a grinder in the beginning, grind, and I would just outgrind anybody and get where I needed to get. But during my journey, as I elevated, what my experience was, I had someone that I was in business with became my first plus one. Put me to work, many in-home parties, three-way phone calls, um, And so that was my plus one. But as time went on, that person didn't want to grow as much as I did. Now, there was no Xing them out because they had grown a pretty good sized business and they led me to thousands and thousands and thousands and thousands of people in that one leg of business. But that was my first plus one. My second plus one was a guy who was a mail carrier. I had met his brother and he was like at a fitness equipment store. He was pretty excited and he turns me on to his brother as someone who might be interested in the business. We get on the phone, a lot of similar values, and that guy was my plus one. Same thing, put me to work, kept me busy, and that elevated me to the first benchmark level in that prior company. Shortly after that, I found my next plus one. Now, that guy, that mailman, didn't stick with it, didn't have the intestinal fortitude, led me to some pretty good business. Um, but it never exploded like the first leg did. So the third one was a guy that I meet online and built a relationship with, and man, he and I were plus one for a good 6 to 8 months. For whatever reason, he stopped liking me. He didn't leave, but he had to do his own thing. But that led me to thousands and thousands of people. So by that time, I'm going, hey, this plus one where it's you and me, we're going to do this together really matters. So, I went on to find about 14 plus ones in my time over, a pretty good length of time, 5, 6, 7 years to get to the highest level in that prior company. And all those plus ones, man, we just tore it up. But it wasn't me saying I got to have like 10 frontline people to work with. I did at some point, but I was really locking arms and really pouring in and helping build out. I looked at it. See, I come from big business, former president, chief executive officer for several large national restaurant chains. So I understood opening up new businesses. I had opened up restaurants all over the country and as part of that role. So to me, it was always like find this person who wants to run their business, certainly initially, because plus ones can also, kind of go sideways on you. But if they get going long enough, you can find some people to work with in those legs of business. And that's exactly how I got there. I never, ever, ever told somebody we were not working together. It was always their actions or attitude, whether we were going to still be locked arms. But the story isn't really about that part, getting to the massive, big, giant businesses I've built in the past and currently building again. The whole thing was a mindset, especially early on, that we're doing this together. If I, will you? And so, hey, listen, I'm building a business and I want to really lock arms with the right person to get this started. Do you know how much easier, I'm going to use the word easy. Do you know how much easier this business is if you're locking arms with someone? They're running their business, you're running your business. Hopefully, they're on your team. That's the best plus one. But you're running the streets together. You're making the phone calls together and you're building. Now, if you just camp out there and you don't let that person grow up, stand up, teach them the plus one philosophy, find the one, the golden child, if you will, pour into them, help them go. But to me, the business is also catch and release, meaning you got to catch them, you got to cook them, you got to do all that stuff, meaning you've got to prospect them, recruit them, teach them, coach them, mentor them. But at some point, they've got to step up, stand on their own 2 feet, become a leader unto their own. So it isn't that you stick with the plus one thing, but this is so important for brand new people. Think of all the brand new people. Maybe you're a brand new person. What if you just had one person who was doing what you're doing, plugged in, following the system, engaged, getting on the Zooms and the and when the world opens again, attending the conferences, someone you're really working this with, get your plus one, or if you've already figured this out, teach, especially your new people, Do you know what happens? Well, one, the first person you recruited, belief goes through the roof because they've got someone to work with. And the new person knows the first person is committed. Now the new person teaches the second person to get their plus one, and so forth and so on. Because the whole thing here is duplication, and especially on the front end. If someone can get down duplication early, that's where the wealth creation is, others doing what you do. And to me, if they can get it down early, they're not going to have to overcome bad habits, corruption, the fact that they didn't provide third party credibility, so now their people don't. They don't have to overcome the bad habits. And the best way to not start bad habits is to be a role model yourself for doing good habits. So if you've got your plus one, do you want to follow the system and teach that person how to do it and then help them get their plus one? You see, some of this stuff, it's like a life hack. When you get these things, it changes everything. If you don't have your plus one, isn't it time you just kind of share? I'd love to be in business with you. What's wrong with that? Nothing's wrong with that. Somebody has to have that conversation, and you have to believe it, and you have to teach it. Plus one. You got one? Go get another one. Hey, have a great day. Let's